Good afternoon and welcome to Community Candor. This session is entitled New Ways to Save, and we're really excited about the panel that we have here with us today. Just so you know, we're doing this series of episodes in collaboration with Show Me the Money Day, which is a statewide initiative that kicks off tax season. And the goal of the initiative is really to connect families and individuals with financial education and resources. So welcome. Your host today is Communities First, and I'm your moderator, Renee Kent, Director of Special Projects here at Communities First. And we kicked off Community Candor as a way to provide resources around financial education, as well as advocacy and equitable practices, and bringing resources to the community that were of interest to the community. So, welcome to our audience. Please note that we have a survey that we'd like you to fill out. You can fill it out now or at the end, but that really helps us to know if the information that we're providing is helpful, and it also lets us know what information you might want to know about so that we can talk about it in future sessions. All right. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce our panel here. We've got three great guests, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with Catherine Linehan. And if you can introduce yourself and tell us who you are and a little bit about your background.
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Linehan, and I'm actually the Fund Development and Marketing Coordinator at Communities First. And so I'm excited to be on today's talk because I've gotten really interested in thrifting and going to antique stores as a way to find affordable items at a quality kind of cost bracket. And so I'm excited to be here.
We are very excited to have you and definitely interested in learning some of those tips that you're going to share with us. Next, we have Brandon Daniels, and we want to give a special thanks to Brandon and Level One Bank, Level One Bank, now a division of, I'm going to say this all wrong.
First Merchants Bank, yep.
Thank you. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Brandon Daniels. I'm from Level One Bank, a division of First Merchants Bank. I'm an assistant vice president, branch manager here at our Detroit location downtown. And I've been in banking for about 13 years. And a couple of things I'll be talking about is saving. Of course, that's the point of emphasis today. And we all like to save, but we just don't do it. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later.
Thank you, Brandon. Yes, it's definitely a topic that we all should be interested in, and interested to hear what you have to share with us. And next we have Ryan Dean.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Dean. I'm the Maintenance and Facilities Manager for Communities First. I've been in facilities for 20 years now in some capacity, whether it's in maintenance or grounds or energy efficiency. And I'm going to be speaking on some energy efficiency tips for your home, for homeowners, for renters, and also I'll touch on maintenance for your car, how we can save on gas with gas prices the way they are. I'm going to speak on just some top 10 tips in all facets of those. I'm not used to being on camera, so this is all new for me, so please bear with me.
That's okay, Ryan. You're a superstar. We're excited to have you here. And you had me at saving money on gas because I think that is of interest to everybody. So if you're here for nothing else, definitely learn about how you can save money on gas. All right. So as we mentioned earlier, the topic today is new ways to save. We want to welcome our audience and just note that this is live. So if you have any comments or questions, feel free to put those in the live chat. We'll be checking and answering those as we go along. So welcome. Question at hand is, do you know how to save money? And what are the best ways to save money? And when you save money, what should you be doing with that money? So we're going to talk about all of those things related to saving, thrifting, home efficiency, saving money on gas, as well as some other tips along the way. And especially since we're dealing in an environment of inflation and rising costs, I think that all of this information is very relevant to today. So let's start with shopping. Okay, so we all shop, right? Whether or not we are shopping the latest brands or just the basic items, we all need something, related to clothes, household items. And the key is not to break the bank while you're shopping, right? To keep a budget in mind. And in recent years, it's become very popular to thrift shop. They've even coined, fancy terms for it, such as vintage shopping, right? So I'm very excited to have Catherine here, who's going to talk about this method of shopping and how the impact that it can have on your budget and your wardrobe. So Catherine, please share with us some tips for the best way to thrift shop.
Yeah, thank you, Renee. And I think that is why I initially became really interested in thrift shopping and also shopping for antiques. I moved out for the first time, and I didn't realize how quickly things add up. So like you have your large ticket items like your furniture, but also it costs a lot just to fill up your kitchen with like basic items. So that's kind of where I was coming from, and then have more recently gotten into shopping for clothes, especially like now that summer's coming up. I'm excited to like get new things, but I think it's making sure that I'm buying things intentionally, because otherwise they just end up sitting in your closet. And so I think when people think of thrifting, they think of kind of like the large donation stores. So systems like Goodwill or Salvation Army, the way that those work are they receive donated items that they're then able to sell at a discounted cost in their stores. And so I think that that's a great way to start thrift shopping, because they have so many different locations. So if you don't have a Goodwill or Salvation in your town, there's probably one relatively close nearby, and they have items like clothing, but again, like the household items. Some stores sell electronics at a discounted rate, as well as furniture, and they're always getting new things in because people are always donating. So you can go back a couple of weeks later and there'll be a totally different selection. And so what I also appreciate about kind of stores that are in that structure is that you kind of get to dig through things. I really like to do that. You could spend like 5 continuous hours in a Goodwill sorting through their like larger items, going through rack to rack. And they also have discount days. So all of the items in the store, if you go there after you watch this Community Candor, are tagged in a different color. So they'll have 50% off days based on those. So you'll get extra savings. If you go on holidays, a lot of times they're 50% off. And they also have like 99-cent days. Anything I can buy for under $1, immediate steal, because you're not going to get those prices anywhere else. And I think what is also interesting to note is that a lot of larger stores, so thinking of department stores or retail stores like Target, also donate their products that are out of season. So you can get new items with the tags on them if that's something that you might have some hesitation about if you're going to a thrift store for the first time. And I think that in terms of accessibility, it's a great option for folks. However, there are people in my life who do not like to spend 5 hours in a thrift store. And so you can go to places that have more curated content. So those are usually organized either by type of item, so more like trendy clothing. You can buy antiques, which will just be furniture, and then they do the work of sorting some of that out for you. You usually just have to pay a little bit more because they've done some of that front end work. So I live in the Flit area. So one of the examples of stores that I know are really popular for trendy clothing is like Plato's Closet. So again, they do some of that front end work for you. You can do specialty stores. So shout out to Habitat for Humanity. They have a restore in our area where you can buy reusable household items, kind of like those larger ticket items like home appliances, so like a washer and dryer, as well as building materials. So for the crafty folks who are watching, you can buy quality items at a discounted cost. And then I also really like vintage stores and antique malls, again, because I like to do like that kind of digging. And so each seller in those kind of systems has their own booth. They get to pick like curated content. So maybe you're looking for Victorian teacups, and that's like your jam. And there will be someone who will just sell teacups or records. I know that there's a couple of places near us that do kind of vintage baseball cards. So there's kind of something for everyone. And so I think keeping in mind that you're looking for items that you're going to use are of a practical interest for you. So like I really love to garden. So I kind of tend to go more towards buying probably more like pots for my plants than I need to, but it's something that brings me a lot of joy. So it's something that I spend like a lot of energy looking for. But again, not something that's going to just sit around collecting dust. And then I think that, so those are all like typically stores or venues that sell secondhand items, but you can also go to kind of either single or like reoccurring events. So yard sales, we haven't had a lot of them during COVID, but again, that's kind of like the OG of thrifting, because you can stop by someone's home. People are really usually excited to be selling items that they're no longer using. And you can kind of bargain with people if you feel comfortable doing that, to come in maybe like at a lower price and see if they'll be willing to negotiate with you. Estate sales are another kind of usually like weekend event. So usually somebody has had a major life event and they are liquidating either their home in some way, and they want to sell everything basically. So you can walk in, do a perusal. They have websites dedicated to estate sales, so you can find them in your area. If you're looking for something usually like higher end or more expensive items, you can get at a discounted rate at estate sales. And then again, I love antiques. So they have weekend events for antique fairs, for thrift fairs, and you can find anything from like mid-century swivel chairs to pieces of barns that you can turn into a newer, unique project. And so I think what I like is that there are options for everyone's style. So you might not have tried thrifting because you're like, I don't want my grandma's couch. But there are so many more possibilities as long as you can get creative. So I think if you don't want to go kind of like out, spend that much time like looking through things, the internet is awesome. So you can go online and basically buy things secondhand instead of spending that time in the store. So there are like, I think the original kind of secondhand stuff like eBay, but there's also now dedicated apps for, again, like that curated content. So ThreadUp, Depop, and Poshmark all sell either secondhand kind of like trendy items or more high-end clothing. So you can buy designer items at a discounted cost. I love shoes, but I don't know if you have seen the price tag for designer shoes. I just can't rationalize that purchase. But I can maybe spend a little bit more on a more expensive item at a discounted cost that I know I'm actually going to use. Because I think if I bought a designer bag, it would just sit on my shelf and I would just observe it in its glory, but like maybe not use it on a regular basis. So stores like Vestaire, which may be like a European kind of international based secondhand website, like allow you to do that. And then there are also extensions of social media like Facebook, which we're on today with Community Candor, where you can sell on Facebook Marketplace. So those are usually people in your local community who are, again, in the theme of yard sales, are selling secondhand items. You can have them shipped to you. You can meet in a public location, which is usually what I prefer to do, because folks are really nice, but you always want to prioritize your safety and what you feel comfortable with. Because you can also meet people at their homes for like larger kind of furniture that are hard to move. But I think what is cool is that now you have so many options for where you can buy secondhand items, that there are kind of like limitless possibilities. And I think just in terms of helpful tips, maybe on what items you buy secondhand, usually like what I look for first is, do I need it? And I think need is a difficult term sometimes, because do you need an additional mixer, or does it just look cool, is my problem. So I think I like to make a list before I go somewhere of things that I either would like to replace from a quality standpoint, or I don't have a spatula, that kind of stuff, and then you can build from there. So I like to look at specific brands, either what I would be buying from a traditional store, like Old Navy, or you can look for brands in terms of recognition. So like the other day, I saw a Prada backpack, and I was like, wow, what a cute backpack. But again, number one, do I need it? Which I didn't. So I did pass, but I think it's cool that there are always so many options for you. Another thing to keep in mind is quality. So for clothing, if you are a talented seamstress, you can look for things that might have some damaging, but I typically tend to stay away from things that have rips or tears. Is your furniture in good working condition? Do things open and close the way that you want them to? And so you can do a lot of research on the front end if it's something that you don't have a specialty in, or you can go online. YouTube tutorials are awesome. I think one of the larger things that I have been able to kind of refurbish was like a dresser. And I watched an entire YouTube tutorial on how to strip the stain off a dresser, redid it, finished it, and put on some new handles. But again, you're keeping in mind that it costs time and energy, as well as like materials to replace the things. So if you feel like that's not the trade-off for you, you can always just pass on that item and look for something that has a higher quality. And then I think a couple of their trade-offs that are just kind of on a personal basis, or whether or not like the item fits into your lifestyle. So I am slightly allergic to cats. So I don't buy anything that is a fabric or upholstery item that I can't clean. So like carpets, fabric furniture, stuff that you would have to have like professionally cleaned to like be in your home is stuff that I tend to pass on. I know other folks tend to pass on things like car seats, where safety might be a concern, or like the quality of the item might be compromised in some way. And then just practical items like lamps. If you don't have a light bulb, you don't know that the lamp works, don't buy the lamp, that kind of stuff. And some of it is definitely trial and error. I've gotten things home and been like, maybe this was not the best purchase, but it's at a discounted rate, so you can hopefully find it a new home afterwards. And I think as an extension of that, you can make money or donate items of your own. So consignment stores are secondhand stores where you can make a small percentage of money back when your item is sold. So usually they have specific kind of like criteria your clothing or your furniture has to meet. So you do have to usually take it in. But it is a nice way to kind of make some money back. Facebook Marketplace, you can sell it online. Sometimes they give you recommendations that you can follow. And then I think just on the final end is just keep folks in your network who can or cannot take your donated items. But as you can see, I get excited. And so if anyone has anything they want to add, and I'll turn it back to you, Renee.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Like that was like a lot of great information. And just a reminder to the audience, if there are any questions, please go ahead and share those. And Catherine is going to share some of those sites that she mentioned so that we can put them in the chat so that you can access them if you're interested. I just want to recap a couple of things that you said. You know, they have discount days. So not only can you thrift at a discount, but you can go on a discount day and get a discount on your discounted item. That's a lot of discounts. Like that's awesome. And then the fact that they have new items there too. So when you're buying, when you're thrifting, you're not necessarily always buying used. There are new items available. And I think the most important thing that she said is go in with a list so that you're not just, purchasing things because they're discounted, but you're actually purchasing based on what your actual needs are. because without that, you could end up spending more money than you're trying to save, right? So thank you, Catherine. That was really great information. And I'm super excited to talk to Ryan a little bit now about ways that we can save money in operating our home more efficiently. And so I think Ryan's going to share his top 10 recommendations for operating a more efficient household, whether you're a renter or a homeowner. So Ryan?
Thank you, Renee. I've got my top 10 list here I wrote down. Energy efficiency in the home is I'm kind of a lunatic when it comes to it. I hate waste, and I hate wasting energy, and I hate wasting money, because that's basically what you're doing. So the main cost in a home is probably going to be your HVAC system, your air conditioning, your heating system. Consumers energy averages, that's about $2,000 a year to the average homeowner. One of the biggest things you can do for that is just maintain that system. Changing your filters regularly. It's pretty straightforward for most people, whether you live, or if you're a renter or a homeowner. You can look up your furnace if you have the manual, or it's usually right there. You can change it, and the more you change that filter, the less struggle on the HVAC system it is. Just imagine you're trying to breathe. If your filter's clogged, it's working that much harder, which is wasting more energy. If you have the ability and the money, I recommend a tune-up every year of some kind, having your local HVAC contractor come out and just look over your system. There's actually energy credits available through your energy provider, whether it's DTE or Consumers or whoever. They will actually give you money back for having your system up and running like that. I'm going to be rambling here, but you can install, if you don't have a programmable thermostat, you don't have to have a Nest or a smart thermostat. Just having a programmable thermostat, I mean, those are nice. There's energy credits for all this stuff you can get through Consumers Energy. I mean, you can get a smart thermostat right now for $50, and that pretty much pays for itself after 6 months to a year. And that's, they give you rebates for that stuff, and that's just going to reduce your, when you're not home, you can control it from your phone, or even if you're not using a smart thermostat, a programmable one, just set the hours when you're away to not run the thermostat. That's going to save you a lot of money. I wrote down, I think it's for every degree that you lower your thermostat. Can't remember what it is, but there's just massive savings in setting back your thermostat. That's one.
I've heard of that, Ryan. I think it's like $100 per year for every degree that you turn it down, something like that.
Yeah, if you lower it 7 to 8 degrees a day, like when you're away, or we all got animals at home and stuff, so you don't want to reduce it too much, but it can end up being saving 10% over the course of a year. So I thought I wrote that down, but I don't have. Another thing involved with that, lower your water heater temperature to 120 degrees if you have the ability, if you have your ability to turn it down. Everybody likes a nice hot shower. Sometimes that becomes what it makes your water heater waste. It's heating unnecessarily. Most people, you can just go, there's a knob right on the bottom of it, just reduce it to 120 degrees. Same thing with washing your clothes. That's number 3. Reducing use of hot water while washing your clothes. Not only does hot water, you do it with towels and stuff where you need certain items, but you have black jeans or black whatever, it's going to fade. Hot water fades those clothes, and it's just wasting hot water too. You can get, using cold water more often. You can see I think Tide's actually promoting it. There's a commercial with Ice-T and Stone Cold Steve Austin and talking about cold water washing, and it's become the norm now to just washers are pretty efficient now, and they don't really need the hot water to clean as much as they used to. So that's another one. That's also the number 2 highest energy cost for most homes is your hot water. That's, HVAC's number one. Hot water heating is number two. I'm going to go to number 4. Make sure your doors and windows are sealed up properly. If you feel a draft around your windows or your doors, there's an issue. There's either weather stripping that's missing, or your floor sweep is, on your door. If there's cold air coming in, that's a problem. And it's really an inexpensive thing to get a caulk. And even a renter, if you feel it around your windows in your apartment or your rental property, contact your landlord, have them seal it up, or contact your maintenance provider. Say, hey, I feel a draft, because it's wasting, in the wintertime, cold air is getting in and making your furnace run more. In the summertime, you're losing, it's your cold air from your air conditioner is getting out. So it's the same thing. So that's pretty easy. You can go to Home Depot and get some weather stripping or some caulk and seal it. It might not look the prettiest, but it'll stop that draft if you have to. Number 5, I'm a lighting fanatic. LED lights, can ask my wife. They're in every fixture in everywhere in my house. Every fixture has an LED light and has for the last 10 years. They've come down significantly in cost. One thing with lighting, I'll touch on LEDs in a second, but if it's, we've been hearing about it. Our fathers and mothers told us growing up, if you're not in a room, turn the lights off. It's pretty common sense, but you'd be surprised, how many people leave their porch lights on all day. Just if you're not using it, turn it off. I mean, if you can. But that's the same thing, LED upgrades is probably the easiest thing you can do to reduce lighting. Lighting is lighting's not a huge cost for most home energy, but it is. There's lights everywhere, and they're so low in power. They pull so little power now that a whole room of light bulbs, 10 bulbs pulls about as much energy as one old school light bulb, which is crazy. But that's the amount of savings you have. And it used to have to go through consumers or DTE to get those rebates, but now they're factored into the price. So no matter if you go to Home Depot or Menards or Gilroy's or wherever that's already factored into the price, and you don't have to do the rebates on that. Again, I could talk about lighting all day, but that's as far as saving water, you can install aerators on your sinks. You can go to Home Depot or your big box store and get an aerator, low flow shower heads. It reduces how much water is coming out of your faucet. And that's something a renter can do. The same thing with the lighting. Renters can do that too. I don't believe that's going to violate any aspect of your rental agreement to throw an LED bulb in a fixture. And for most, it's common sense, but it's pretty significant savings. Same thing with the aerators or low flow shower heads. That reduces we all like a good hot shower and run the water. That's another thing, reduce your shower time if possible. Don't stay in the shower for 45 minutes or an hour. Try to, but that's where your shower head can come help with that. You get a low flow shower head. They make really nice ones. They used to be kind of crappy, but now they're down to 2.5 gallons a minute, which is pretty reduced compared to the shower heads we had when we were growing up. That's every little bit saves. Going back to the power stuff, unplug things that you're not using. I know it seems, you think that if it's not on, it's not pulling power, but if it's plugged into the wall, they call that vampire drain. If it's plugged in, it's probably pulling juice of some kind, whether it's a toaster, a coffee pot, a computer you don't use that often. Anything that's plugged in is pulling power of some kind. You might not see it, but it's pulling power. Your Amazon box, your cable box, your TVs. If you can unplug it and have the ability, or put it in a power strip and just make it easy. You got a bunch of devices on a power strip. It's just got a button on there. Just push the button and it unplugs everything. Turns everything off. You'd be surprised how much juice that saves just across your household. And there's kind of an old, when I was the energy advisor, we used to say, if it glows, it goes. So if you see something glowing, it's probably pulling energy. Your alarm clock, everything that plugs in, if it's got a little light on it that you can see, it's pulling energy of some kind. One thing for homeowners and renters both, Energy Star rated appliances. If you were looking to upgrade your appliances or looking to rent a space, that's a selling point to me. If you move in and it's got an Energy Star rated dishwasher, an Energy Star rated refrigerator, it's just a little sticker the government puts on there that shows it's an energy efficient model compared to some other. And it usually tells you right on there how much energy and how much that's going to cost. If you go to the store, you probably can't buy a refrigerator right now the way supply chain issues are right now, but it'll have a sticker on there that says Energy Star, this is what this costs to operate it for the year under normal conditions compared to a similar model. That's another way to save some money. And with appliances, the recommended fridge temperature for efficiency is between 35 and 38 degrees. Ours at my home, it's 37 degrees. That's just the default. Some people like it a little colder, some people like it a little warmer, but that's just making your fridge and your freezer work harder than they need to be. My last one will be just a home energy audit. Consumers or DTE, I can't speak for DTE. I'm a consumer's customer. It's primarily who I've dealt with. They will do a free home energy audit for you if you are a customer of theirs. I assume DTE is the same way. And because of COVID and the pandemic, they used to come right into your house, and they still will if you want them to. And they will point out things like your water heater and your light bulb, whatever. They'll look at your windows and see that they're losing that, your energy. You got the breaks in the seals and stuff we talked about earlier. That's a free service that they provide, and they will actually give you light bulbs and aerators, some of these things that I've talked about. And they do it virtually now also. So if you don't want somebody coming in your home, some people are still on the edge about that, but they started that over the pandemic, that they do these services virtually now. And that's a free service that they provide. And they will provide some free materials for you to help with that.
Thank you, Ryan. This is all great information. So I just want to ask a quick question. And I don't know if I'm the only one growing up where my grandparents and parents put like a old pickle jar in the back of the toilet. Does that help reduce water flow? Like, what does that do?
Yeah, I've never heard the pickle jar aspect of it. Most people use a brick or a rock. They go get a big rock and put in, or maybe not a huge rock, but a brick. I've heard of bricks being used before, and that just reduces the amount of water that's going to fill that toilet tank. It's just a small amount, but everything adds up when it comes to efficiency. Every little bit is a savings. I can't say that I have a brick in my toilet, my toilet tank right now, but it would reduce. It just reduces the capacity that's going to fill in that toilet. But the pickle jar, that's a new one for me.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Well, yeah, because I actually do have pickle jars in all of my toilets, so they're like full, but they're in the toilet, and then it takes up that amount of space, and you're, I guess, using less water. So I'm glad to know there is a reason for having pickle jars in the toilet. Thank you so much for sharing this information. I think we all have something to think about. I did have DTE come out and do an energy audit, so I feel like I feel good on that aspect, but there are some of these other aspects that I need to definitely run a check on in my household to make sure I'm running as efficient as possible. So thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about gas prices. I mean, this is something that we're all dealing with, whether or not we drive or not. It's impacting the cost of everything. And so super excited to hear what you have to share with us, Ryan, about ways that we can reduce our gas cost, as well as maybe our impact on the environment.
Yeah, no problem. I'm not a mechanic by anywhere, but I do service my own vehicles for the most part, and I'm not a gearhead, but I like the stuff. And it's easy to tell people, well, just drive less, walk more, ride a bike to work. Well, that's not feasible for everybody, So I'm going to try to touch on stuff, whether it's tech-based or, just a little vehicle stuff you can do yourself. I got 10 or 11 tips for this too. Number one, you probably don't think about it, but keep your tires inflated correctly. Gas Buddy kind of said, or I think it's Gas Buddy, it says you can underinflated tires lead to poor gas mileage, and you can save at least 3.3% over the course of a year of gas prices, of how much you're spending on gas by just underinflated or overinflated tires. And that's something, most cars, you look inside the door, your driver's door, it'll tell you, as long as you don't have aftermarket tires or wheels on them, you haven't put dubs on your car or spinners or 35s like are on my truck, it'll tell you what your tires are supposed to be inflated to. And even on the side of the tire, you can look and see what the tire is supposed to be rated to. If you just keep it in that range, that's where you want to be. Number two, pay with cash. Some gas stations reward you for paying with cash because they have to offset some of their costs for credit card processing fees. So look for that on some savings you can have. Gas Buddy recommends buying. It says the cheapest gas is on Monday and Friday. I don't know why that is, but they say the days the gas prices are the lowest is to buy gas on Monday and Friday. One thing I've noticed, number four, grocery store reward programs. Kroger, you're going to be you're buying groceries anyways. They give you a little kickback. Sometimes we go to the store and you got 60 cents off on a gallon of gas, which is, they're paying you with your own money, but you might as well take Sam's Club as the same program. You might as well take advantage of it. Number five, use a gas app to find the cheapest locations in your area. It might be worth skipping your favorite gas station to go across town a little bit. Don't drive too far out of your way to go get gas, but every little bit counts. As far as driving, accelerate slowly. Don't be burning out at every stop sign and, foot to the floor, Paul Walker style, Fast and the Furious, getting on the expressway. That's gonna rev up, waste your gas too. Number seven, limit how much idle time you have. We all remote start our cars in the wintertime, maybe even in the summertime to get that air conditioning going. The less time you're letting it sit there running or idling, we're sitting there listening to a podcast or radio before you go to work or whatever, the less time you spend idling, the better. Number eight, know where you're going. Don't be driving around looking for your location. Use the technology that you have, whether it's an old school map or Google Maps or Waze or whatever you're using. Driving around in circles looking for where you're supposed to be going. Oh, there it was. Oh, we'll drive by it again. Oh, well, okay. Know where you're going. Number nine, use cruise control when possible. It keeps your foot off the gas pedal. It just lets you cruise at maintain a certain speed, not too high. If it's in a hilly area, you don't really want to use cruise control because it's going to max the RPMs out. But that's use cruise control when you have the advantage. Number 10, you're not going to like to hear it, but reduce use of air conditioning. Air conditioner makes the engine work more because it needs more power to run the compressor and the air conditioning. And we don't want to hear that, but that's one other way. Last one, 11, I added an extra tip, Renee, I'm sorry. Remove excess weight in your car. If you got bags of sand in the back of your truck from wintertime, maybe, get better traction or, whatever you're carrying, extra weight of any kind, garbage or whatever it is, get it out of your car. sometimes you could remove people. If you got people in your car, remove them. That's just extra weight that you don't need to be driving around with. If you have the ability to, it's just more weight, more work on the engine, more gas you're wasting. That's all I got.
I love these tips. Thank you for sharing that. That's a good excuse for me to tell the kids to get out the car. But I like your point about, planning ahead and, thinking about knowing where you're going. I do have a quick question for you, because I read somewhere that, because I heard you say, to turn your air conditioning down, but I also read somewhere that if you drive with your windows open, it actually, you're less fuel efficient. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, and I never really dug into it. I heard that a couple of years ago, that driving with your windows down is just as inefficient as your air conditioner. I'm guilty of driving with the windows down and having the air conditioner on. So I think that's some of the most wasteful stuff you can do, but it feels good. I'd say it's probably, it probably balances out. So if you're going to, I'm thinking that's more on the I don't know. I'm sure there's a study that one goes one way or the other, but I can't speak to it completely.
Okay, that's fair. And Brandon says it creates drag, but don't talk about my racing. We're not going to talk about that today. So this has been a lot of great information on thrifting, making our house more energy efficient, saving money on gas. I just want to take a moment if anybody has information that they want to share on apps that would be helpful in saving money. I know that Catherine, you mentioned that some of the thrifting places have apps, and Ryan, you mentioned, there's a gas finding app, and I think some of the utility companies have apps now where you can track your utility usage, as well as some of the smart thermometers or thermostats where you can track that information. Are there any other apps that we should mention to the audience that they should think about getting to help them save money? Nope, we covered it all. There's just one other that I'll mention then. So speaking of leaving money on the table, there's a site called unclaimedproperty.michigan.gov, and you can check there to see if you have any money that has been unclaimed. And it's actually a great resource. I'll give you an example. I got a letter in the mail a couple of weeks ago from a bank about an account that I had that had not been used in years. And if I didn't claim that account, the funds were going to be sent to the state of Michigan, and then they would end up on the site unclaimedproperty.michigan.gov. And so you should check that site and just make sure you don't have any funds sitting out there. When we were getting ready to put this episode together, I went ahead and did a quick search and found that my mom had an account sitting out there with some money in it. So, in addition to saving money, don't leave any money on the table. Make sure you check that site. And we'll put all of these websites in the live chat so that you can utilize those at your leisure. So we've talked about a lot of great ways to save money. What are we going to do with all that savings? Well, now it's time for Brandon to take us through some tools that we can use to help us better budget, help us invest those dollars, invest those dollars, and incorporate some habits to improve our budgeting methods and enhance our saving goals. So I'll turn it over to Brandon to enlighten us.
Thanks, Renee. Yeah, once we get all these great savings tips we're providing here, now what to do with this money, right? Of course, we're going to go spend it if we don't have a budget and plan. And so that's the first point I would like to start with, is budgeting. I mean, budgeting, we all say we do it. We all sometimes say we have a budget, but 100% of the time when I'm meeting with someone, it's usually the budget's coming up because they're running out of money. Like, hey, I need to budget. I'm pretty much down to my last dime, but I still want to, live the lifestyle that I've been living. So a lot of times what I always suggest someone is think about what type of person you are individually, and then let's go from there because that'll help you determine what budget best fits you. A lot of time, every budget plan is not for everyone. A lot of times we'll get on the internet, we'll do a quick Google search and we'll look up a budget and, hey, this one seems like something I could do, but not necessarily true in all cases. Sometimes people can budget more aggressively, and then sometimes people need to budget a little bit more conservative, depending on the finances and the type of individual you are. So when we get started with the budget, and I always tell people accountability is the biggest piece, right? Once we're saving this money, we need to get to that accountability piece. Like, am I truly going to leave this money where it needs to be? So there are a couple of habits I kind of tell people like, hey, let's try this approach. So I believe if you can't physically see the money, touch the money, then you'll be able to save the money. And a lot of times we all like to do things centralized at one, financial institution, one bank. And we'll say, hey, I got my checking, I got my savings account. But sometimes we link that savings account to that checking account. And we know like, oh, say Catherine, for example, she's like, hey, I want to go buy, some more furniture, but I don't have enough. I'm picking on you, Catherine. Look, I don't have enough money to get this, furniture at the thrift store. So let me just transfer a couple bucks from my savings account to my checking account to get that covered. And in all reality, that's not the approach we want to use. So having that self accountability is key, and then that discipline. Now, once we get the discipline and the self accountability piece in place, then let's look at how the finances are being used, right? So a lot of us, we all, if you don't have a bank account, you should have a bank account. But if you have a bank account, it tracks your spending. And tracking your spending is one of the most essential things you'll need to do when you get that budget established. So you want to see where most of your money is being allocated to. So for example, I'll use myself. A lot of my money goes to food. I don't, if my wife hasn't prepared me a lunch, I'm pretty much going to go to the nearest restaurant, fast food place at lunchtime. And that can add up over time. As I started to track my spending, I noticed I was spending like an extra 150, 200 bucks a month in fast food. And sometimes it's just something as simple as that, like say, hey, meal prepping. And sometimes we think meal prepping may not be ideal or it's more time consuming, but the time you take to meal prep and get a couple things ready for that week, it'll save you $100. And then you can use that money elsewhere. No one wants to hear that, of course. Everyone's like, I especially because I want to go to the restaurants. I want to go eat out. I'm like, hey, there's a new place down the street. Let me check that out today. But it's not benefiting my pockets in most cases. But you can budget appropriately where like, hey, I may not have 150, 200 bucks to say go out to eat or, get these fast food places, but I'm going to dedicate say 50 bucks or 75 bucks to my going out to eat or, just not making a lunch. And sometimes people forget that part of budgeting as well. It's not to just ultimately sacrifice everything. You're still going to be able to live the lifestyle you want to live. It's just you're cutting back on some of the things that you don't necessarily need. Catherine also mentioned that. Ryan also mentioned that. It's just sometimes we don't necessarily need that item, say, plugged in the wall at home. It's just plugged in. Or sometimes we don't need that extra spatula. We just want it. So we take things into consideration of that nature. Like, hey, I don't necessarily need to eat out every day. That's just a want of mine. But I do like to eat out. So let's dedicate a certain amount of funds to that. And a way of going about that is the budget. So once you get the budget in plan, now we're putting, dollars aside. Let's say, hey, we're going to put this percentage over here. We're going to save this percentage. Once you get those percentages or those amount, because they don't necessarily have to be percentages either. They can be just a certain amount. It could be 5, it could be 10, it could be $100. What you ultimately want to do is sit down with your banker. I always tell people, have a relationship with the bank that you're currently using. Sometimes we just think of the bank as just the instrument that holds our money. But there are people like myself who work there who come up with savings plans and come up with different products we have here at our institutions that can help you either increase the money you already have in your accounts or help you bring more money into those accounts. Like, hey, let's sit down, we'll set up a budget, and that's individualized. Sometimes we try to do it all on ourselves, but having a partner there, someone else to hold us accountable, kind of helps the process along the way. So yeah, if you have a bank account or even a credit union, go sit down, meet your banker and say, hey, this is my financial goal here. This is what I'm looking to establish. And that person, and I'm definitely available. I'm gonna leave my email and my website for our bank as well. If you just want to sit down, no matter what financial institution you are with, I'll be willing to sit down with you and set up a budget plan, because sometimes you just need that extra person, that extra set of eyes to say, hey, if you change this here or change this there, you could benefit here. And a lot of times it could be like a monthly subscription. Monthly subscriptions are huge. A lot of us don't even pay attention to them because we're just so accustomed to like the Netflix, the Disney Plus, anything. They got watch subscriptions you can have. And sometimes just cutting back on those items, like, hey, or cable, or bundling those type of items together could save you a lot of dollars elsewhere. So say if you don't necessarily need cable, but you get like Netflix, the cost of cable is way more expensive than the cost of Netflix. We all know that. And then sometimes you can get special bundles where you can get like 3 different subscription services all packaged into one. And that'll cut away from, because I mean, honestly, are we all watching 1,000 channels that we get with cable? Probably not. And if you're not necessarily using the channels, don't mean you necessarily don't need the channels. So I always sit down with individuals, and I'm a strong advocate of myself. Like, hey, if I'm really not using everything a service can provide, then I just want to try to figure out, can I get just that specific service from that particular subscription? So you'll save a lot of dollars this way. And then once you start saving the money, then yes, we do want to look at the savings accounts, or banks have products like CDs that actually earn interest for you. So your money starts working for you. And then also in a CD, you can't touch that money. So no matter how bad you want to get it, you're like, hey, I really need this money. You don't necessarily want to touch it, because then you're penalized if you do touch that money out of a CD account. And then as you further develop your savings, then we have what you call a wealth management or investments. And then depending on if you're aggressive or conservative, you can speak with an investment advisor, and they can instruct you on the path to take in that route. So there are so many ways for you, once you get the budget and plan, and once you get the money in the savings account, is that you can make the money start working for you. And a lot of us don't even think like that. We just think, hey, we're just putting up a couple of dollars, we're just putting up a couple of dollars, and it'll be there when we need it, which is true. But sometimes you want to maximize those dollars. Like, hey, let's let this money work for me, for instance. So once we start saving, I mean, the sky's the limit. And I always tell people, if you're going to make a purchase, say a large purchase, also, let's map that out. Let's not just be so quick to spend like, hey, thousands of dollars, even though it may be something you really, really want to do. It could be that vacation. And let's say like, hey, you want to go to Jamaica next year. Let's map that out now, and we can put that in your budget right now, so that when next year gets here, everything's been the same. You've still been living the lifestyle you like to live, and now you're going on a trip without having to sacrifice in any other area. So don't think of budgeting as sacrifice. And sometimes I think budgeting gets a bad rep, or we think of it as, hey, I'm down to my last dollar, let me budget now. Think of it as something that's going to further, launch you the next year, the next year, the next year, and the next year, just because the fact of, hey, you're doing the right practices, and the money's always going to be there. It's not going to disappear as long as you don't touch it.
Thank you, Brandon. You shared some really important information there. I think timing is key. So not waiting until you're out of money to budget, but starting now, wherever you are, start now, and really look at budgeting as a way to help you spend money, not tell you what you can't do, right? Because people think of budgets as being restrictive, but really it's really a guide to help you spend your money in a way that allows you to do what you want to ultimately do in life. And I love the incorporating little tricks, because sometimes you have to trick yourself to save. And so, disconnecting the checking and the savings account, or, having your savings account at a different financial institution so it's not easy to touch it, or even using a CD for your savings, so that there are penalties if you touch it. So those are great tools. And then also you mentioned some additional tips for us to think about, subscriptions and what services we're using that we don't necessarily need. I know one of the first things that I did when I really started thinking about savings and budgeting was I got rid of cable, because I'm like, first of all, I don't hardly watch TV. And second of all, I don't watch all these channels. So, what channels do I watch? Can I just pay for those? And, my bill went from $150 a month to $15 a month. So that's a big difference, right? And so we're almost at the end of time, but we've talked about so much information. I want to just open it up to our speakers to maybe share some of their favorite tips to share with the audience. And it could be about their topic, thrifting, or saving on gas and maintenance or budgeting, or it could be another topic that they're passionate about that's relevant. Or maybe if you want to share something that you do to help trick yourself into savings, anything that you think that would be beneficial or helpful to the audience. So I'll go ahead and start with Catherine.
Yeah, thank you, Renee. And thank you, Brandon. You actually reminded me that what I basically do is I hide my money from myself. So a lot of banking institutions, you can do automatic bill pay, but you can also automatically set up savings. So every time my check comes in from my employer, an automatic percentage gets pulled into my savings account, and I just pretend like it doesn't exist. And so I can only spend the money that is left in my checking account. And it does kind of trick you into thinking that you have less. But I think it just makes me more conscious of, like, again, the need, the quality of the item that I'm purchasing, and that if it's going to like bring that kind of like joy to my life. So thanks, Brandon. Yeah, that's a great one.
Thank you, Catherine. And Ryan, I think you said that you're a bit of a budgeting nerd yourself. So go ahead. What would you like to share with the audience?
I just want to say, like, all this stuff seems very connected. Like Brandon said, people start budgeting when they're out of money. That's when they want that, and it's but it all start. You got to start somewhere. Same thing I said with energy efficiency. Every little bit counts. Same thing with Catherine. Every little bit of savings count. You want a new lamp? Well, you can. Every little bit, whatever it is, start somewhere. With everything adds up eventually. And echo on what Catherine said. Some of the best financial advice when I was trying to start saving money, was pay yourself first. The way that I have online bank through Ally, it's just an online savings account, and it automatically, like Catherine says, it's set up in there. But it's a way, if it's in your savings account right next to your checking account at your local bank, that money's readily available to it. Yeah, it's in a savings account, but it's right there. The Ally thing, or whatever online bank you want to use, it keeps it from you just a couple days from making those quick expenditures. The transition time, if it just goes into Ally, I'm not promoting Ally, I'm just saying an online savings account. It just adds a couple days transition time from the amount it comes out of your checking account. It goes in there. If you want to get it, it's going to take you a couple days to pull that out. So you're paying yourself first, and you're giving yourself a buffer. So it's just not right there for the taking in your savings account. So I also use Mint, the application Mint Budgeting. It's a free application. Not everybody uses it because of privacy concerns, but I use that for budgeting too also.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Ryan. They also check your credit scores as well, I believe. So the Mint and I think Credit Karma is another one. And Brandon.
Yeah, one thing that you just reminded me of, the automatic transfers, Catherine. Definitely, I promote automatic transfers because, like you said, you're not seeing that money actually. That money is automatically going somewhere else, and that's, to me, one of the best ways of saving. You can do bill pay, like almost like paying yourself, as Ryan said. It kind of can cut yourself a check every month, but then sometimes you'll get that in the mail, and then you physically have to deposit that elsewhere. But one of the things I did want to share as well, if for people with children or even yourself, if you just save as little as $50 a month, and say with a child, for example, in 18 years, that child will have roughly 11 grand. And I mean, this is things you can use for prom. I've done this with countless of parents, and they all come back and thank me, and they're like, wow, like I didn't have to come out of my personal pocket, even though in reality you are. But you're just not doing it all at once. And you can put this money aside for, say, like I said, prom, buying a vehicle. And if you just maintain that program throughout, I mean, the number can get astronomical. And of course, that's only with $50. Say if you do $100 or $200, I mean, the possibilities are endless. But it's just that key thing is starting in that accountability piece. If you can hold yourself accountable, you can take it as far as you want to take it, and having the right budget plan in place.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you to all of the panelists for sharing today. Great tips were shared. I hope the audience found this information useful. And we've put a lot of the resources and websites in the chat, as well as Brandon's contact information. Special thank you to Level 1, a division of First Merchants, for being on the show today, but also being a sponsor. And just a reminder, if you haven't already, please complete the survey. We do have a prize to give away, so there's that. Plus, it lets us know if this information was useful and what other information you might like to hear about. And just to summarize, from this session, it doesn't matter where you are. Start where you are, and just know that wherever you start, those small savings are going to add up. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. We'll see you on the next show.